Well, Nigel Farage joins me now. Hello, Nigel.
Yes, hello, Mark. Good evening.
Brilliant show tonight. Really enjoyed it, Nigel. And this problem in the Channel is not going away. If anything, it's getting worse.
Yes, the pull factors are still there. 4-star hotel, 3 square meals a day, free dental care. And guess what? If you come into Britain illegally, you even get a face-to-face GP appointment. I mean, how about that? And sorry, nearly forgot, 38 quid a week spending money. And of course, access very quickly into the booming illegal black economy in this country. And of course, for many who come, they've got very nice iPhones and Nike trainers and all the rest of it, and they think they're going to come and make a fortune. Many, of course, finish up in a modern form of slavery. I'm astonished the left don't talk about this. Of the few women that come, well, no great prizes for guessing what happens to many of them. And yet we brush all this under the carpet. And we have this narrative about poor migrants. And all the Times newspaper do is show you pictures of women and children. Those figures today, exactly what I've been saying for the last 2 years. It's 90% young men. I mean, that's what it is. And it's out of control. The pull factors are there. And you know something? Of the over 20,000 that have come this year, there's not been a single deportation, not one. So you may as well hang a sign on the White Cliffs of Dover to say, we are open. And I have to say, I predicted back in April that the number this year would be 20,000. Depending on the weather between now and Christmas, I think it could be nearer 30,000. A lot is weather dependent. And next year, well, what I've been told from good intelligence is they're planning much, much bigger boats. They're planning boats that can take up to 200 at a time. So who's to say that next year can't be 30, 40, 50, 60,000? All young men that we have to accommodate. And here's the real point. Nobody needs to lecture us about giving refugee status, be it to Huguenots, be it to Ugandan Asians, be it to Jewish people from Russia or from Austria or from Germany. We're rather good at this. We always have been. But the vast majority of these people that are coming would never qualify as being people directly in fear of their lives or liberty because of their beliefs or their ethnicity. They just happen to come from countries that may not be particularly stable or particularly nice. But we can't simply open the door to tens of millions. So the real question is what to do. Priti Patel has been promising us since August 2019 that it's all going to be sorted out. And all it does is get worse. Here's the crux of it. There is no solution to this that will please the international community. Just as Tony Abbott in Australia turned the boats around and towed them back to Indonesia to the condemnation of the UN and everybody else. But you know what? The boats stopped coming. And until we start taking people back to France, depositing them back on French shores, this won't end. It's as simple as that. And by the way,
I hear you, Michael. I hear you, and that's certainly a point made by Neil Hamilton, the new permanent leader of UKIP, who spoke to me on this show last night. But can you deposit these migrants back to France without the cooperation of the French authorities?
Yes, you just do it. You just do it. And you'll be condemned by the European Union. You'll be condemned by everybody. We'll be called heartless and cruel. But if people realise that coming via these illegal means they will not be allowed to settle, they will stop coming. It's just as simple as that.
And do you think that the majority of these young men are economic migrants? What motivates this passage, Nigel?
Money. 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 They think they're coming to a country where they can make a lot of money, and some of them will. But most will finish up in the fruit picking industry, in the drugs trade. Most will finish up somehow in the illegal economy. Many will effectively become modern day slaves, and that is part of the shame of it. But, they've got, because they've got iPhones and internet, and they know that in France, they won't be given anything You can see why they want to come here. The pull factors are there, deportations are zero, and operations tonight were continuing into the dark. And the intelligence I've got is that tomorrow will be huge. Huge.
And of course, the weather is a big factor, isn't it, Nigel?
Massive, yeah, of course. And you need relatively calm conditions. Otherwise, the channel is incredibly difficult and even more dangerous. 3 drowned last week. I mean, goodness knows how many actually do drown that we never even hear about. So, yeah, weather is a big factor. But if we get a big high pressure between now and Christmas that just sort of sits over the country, during which, of course, the wind turbines won't work either, then, as I say, we could be nearer 30,000 by the end of the year than 20,000.
And of course, ultimately, you could argue that this is a humanitarian crisis, the fact that there is this trade in human lives, and that's why it's got to stop.
Yeah, and of course, the criminal gangs are making, in a good week, with good weather, the criminal gangs are making millions of euros every single week. And there were some guys in prison the other day, 3 of them, put away for quite long sentences. They made 4 million euros, just 3 of them, over the course of the last year. So it's big money, it's people trafficking, and as I say, to deal with it is going to take really strong political will, and I don't believe, for the life of me, that Boris Johnson possesses that will. And I'll add one more thing, if I may, on this point. Undocumented young men without proof of identity, but we know among them are some who do not wish us well. This is a major security risk to our nation. And perhaps, in the light of the appalling, and I'm going to use the word assassination of Sir David Amess, we need to think a little bit harder about this.
It's very important that we know who is coming into the country. It's also bad news for those who are legally seeking refuge in this country. And this evil crime and this evil industry puts those people to the back of the queue. So, Nigel, I agree with you more on that one. Now, it's been reported, Nigel, that France have backed down in their fishing row after Jersey offered to move things forward. Paris shelved plans to ban UK boats from French ports following last-ditch talks. But how long will this détente last, Nigel?
Not long. This is not over. I mean, the injustice of the whole thing is incredible. 103 French boats are allowed to fish up to our 6-mile line. Do you know how many of our boats can fish in their 6 to 12-mile limit? 1. There are over 1,500 other boats fishing in British territorial waters. We've given everything away. The fisheries deal that Boris Johnson did was a complete sellout. In theory, we have control of our nation's waters back, but in practice we don't. And surprise, surprise, we learned today that all these French boats claiming they should be allowed to fish close to Jersey and 6 miles from the mainland, surprise, surprise, we learn that many of them are fibbing. Many of them have made up the data. And that is the story of the CFP from the start. A very quick potted history, if I may. Hours before Ted Heath signed the treaty to take us into the common market, as it was all those years ago, hours before, they panicked in Brussels. The Brits have got all these fish. So they literally invented the common fisheries policy within 2 days of Britain joining. Heath was presented it by his chief negotiator, the appropriately named Sir Con Coughlin, and he said, this is terrible. And Heath said, swallow the lot and swallow it whole. That's what we did. Then as the CFP developed, they asked British, French and other fishermen for historic records. The French just doubled and tripled anything they'd ever caught, and the Brits said, we're not telling you. Shows you the cultural difference, doesn't it, between the French and the British, and we've been at a disadvantage ever since then. Most of these French boats that have been refused have no historic access to British waters. If they did, their logbooks would record it. To even claim they have it means they're actually admitting they were fishing illegally. And they're trying it on because a French vessel with a license to fish up to R6 is going to be worth 2 or 3 times one for inshore French waters. They're trying it on. Macron wants the lot. Macron wants confrontation at every level. You know what? Let's give it to him.